welcome back to the breakdown. Right now it's March. We're going to talk about the March, April-ish winter to spawn season change. This is going to apply to not only people in boats, but also people on banks, docks, wherever you can fish from, really. This is going to help a lot of people figure out, what can work, what may not work, and then developing your own personal preference and style of fishing it based on whatever I can try to tell you guys in this video. We're going to cover the baits and the colors. And then we're also going to talk about why. Matter of fact, we're going to lead off with that. Now, the reason why we're throwing all of these baits is because primarily bass are now starting to move shallow again. They're getting out of that deep water because that cold air is gone, the water's starting to warm up, and they're getting ready for what's called spawn season. So March is typically pre-spawn, and around April is whenever spawn season starts. What it is they're going to sit up in these banks. They're going to be shallow, way more shallow than they were during the winter. They're going to make beds. They're going to sit there. They're going to basically have their babies do whatever they got to do, but they're also going to protect those beds. They're more energized. They're looking for 1-2 good meals, and then they're going to sit. Now, what baits are going to work first? First thing is I like reaction baits this time of year. And even if it's on a Texas rig hook, if it's on a belly weighted hook, or if it's something like a spinner bait, a lipless crankbait, a vibrating jig, or basically the what's it called, the chatterbait by Z-Man, essentially. Anything like that, those are what we're going to really like if you want something that's going to be in motion the entire time. Let's talk about it real quick. Go right here. We'll open it up. I got some crankbaits. I got some vibrating jigs. And then obviously I got some belly weighted hooks that we can talk about in a second here. And then some spinnerbaits to kind of gloss over really fast. First things first, color is the thing that I'm concerned about with all of the baits. Right now they're going to be feeding on shad, or they're going to be feeding on craw, depending on where you are and what time you're watching this video. Right now around me, they're kind of eating a lot of craw. So I'm going to be throwing these red, orange, yellow, craw colored baits. But whenever they start eating more along the shads or shad colors, I'm going to start throwing more silvers. I'm going to throw red eye sexy shads, and maybe even just some blank white baits, Now, this is also going to depend on how, realistically, how dirty or clear the water clarity is where you're fishing at. So, what's the big takeaway from this? Match your hatch. Don't fish super fast if it's cold. Don't or make sure you know what you're throwing. We're not really looking for lipped crankbaits anymore. If so, maybe just maybe a square bill that dives 2, 3, 4, 5 feet, but nothing further than that, really. Vibrating jigs, kind of the same concept. I'm going to be throwing this black and red one for a little bit, trying to match that craw bite, but whenever they switch over to shad, I'm going to start throwing this more silver and white one. Simple concept, or at least in theory, it's pretty simple. Don't need to go super in depth with it right now. That's just the general cover of that box. Now, whenever I'm looking at my spinnerbaits here, I'm going to level with you guys. I've got white spinnerbaits, I've got chartreuse spinnerbaits, I've got white with red in there, and all these other colors to kind of match the shad. But here's the one thing that I actually don't really talk about that much about spinnerbaits. I'm not a fan of these type of spinnerbaits. Right here is actually my favorite spinnerbait type, and that is the inline spinnerbait. Reason being is it's probably the most universal one you can use in terms of application. You can use it year-round, windy, not windy. If you really need to, you can let it sink and you can fish it really deep if you're looking for a deep water bite. If you want to fish it shallow, you can pick up the pace and keep it higher in the water column. Now that's for a whole different video covering the different types of spinnerbaits. But why do I like them? Well, this last tournament I just fished that I do have a video of in the works is a perfect example. It's windy, it's going to stir up just a little bit of drama, and the smaller thing right there, if I work it a little slower, I tend to get more bites on it. Purely preference, honest to God at the end of the day. Now, moving on from that, we're going to talk about the Texas rig or the soft body versions of these. And that's going to be these belly weighted hooks right here. Now this is a 3/8 or 3/0 belly weighted hook. I believe it's an 1/8 ounce. I don't really go heavier than that. It's got a screw nose on it, and I'll typically throw a paddle tail on it. Whether I want to swim it or if I want to use it with a fluke instead, I'm going to try to trigger a reaction bite. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to have like a jerkbait thrown on hand right now and that's one of the go-tos. I have one tied on right now, but that's not actually my go-to. I barely threw it during that tournament. Moving forward, let's talk about some jigs and then some jerkbait, twitchbait, topwater action. All right, moving here now. Topwater is going to be something a little more viable to me. Ow. We'll cover the jigs last because that's one of my favorite baits to throw, but topwater is more viable now. I'm going to be throwing these Rapala skitter walks a little more here. I'm going to throw my walking baits more. If I'm in cover, I'm going to be throwing frogs more often, you know, and going from there, figuring it out, and making sure that, you know, whatever I'm throwing is set up to go through some thick brush if needed. You know, I tried these speed clips out that are going viral on social media. They ain't bad, but I just don't prefer them. Again, jerkbaits aren't like the big necessary thing, but they're a good option. Realistically though, I'm going to stick with walking baits and frogs right now in the morning, or if I'm fishing through a lot of heavy cover and I want a topwater strike. Now, if I'm fishing heavier cover or around heavier cover and it's a little more, you know, sun's higher in the sky, it's a little warmer, I'm not throwing a frog. I don't like topwater when it's hot out because you got to slow things down a lot, and I like to try to lure them out of the cover that they're using. So instead, I'm going to switch to jigs. You know, I've got football jigs for whenever we're in the winter season and you got to be a little slower, and by a little, I mean a lot slower. Instead, I'm actually going to switch to these guys right here for now. Now, this is a structure jig. I think this is the Denny Brauer structure jig by Strike King. This is a 1/2 ounce jig designed to basically get thrown into cover and drag it out, pop it out, hop it out, however you want to work it, getting it out, working it slow, and trying to convince something to chase after it and get stuck up in the vegetation and try to pull it out through there. That probably didn't sound right, but whatever. After that, as we get closer to April, I'm going to switch over to a swim jig. Ideally, by the time I switch to this, I'm going to be feasting more on shad, or at least the fish are, not me myself. And I'm going to switch over to throwing more white ghost shad colorways, trying to lure them out just by throwing it along the edge of the cover that they're going after, popping it, working it slow, fast, however I need to, getting them to commit to that bite. And then I'll tell you now, there ain't nothing like a jig bite. Now, I got swim baits in here. I'm not a big swim bait guy, not a big glide bait guy. So as I get more experience with that, we can readdress that. But going back to the terminal setup, I mean, it's always an option to throw. We're going to talk about the Texas rig. Texas rig, whether it be on a jointed structure head like this right here by Strike King. This is a 3/8 ounce jointed structure head, jig, hook, whatever it's called. You can get them at Bass Pro Shops. They're a little expensive, I'm not going to lie to you. But typically, I like to throw these right here. This is a 3/0 Trocar extra wide gap hook, and then I'm going to throw a 3/16 ounce bullet weight on there, just like this. These guys are 96 cents. You can get regular Eagle Claw hooks at Walmart for like 94 cents or something like that. You don't have to have the expensive stuff. And I'm going to throw any kind of worm I want. I'm going to throw crawbaits. I'm going to throw trick worms. I'm going to throw, where are they at? Frogs on there if I need to. I'm going to throw super flukes. I got curly tails. I'm going to throw anything and everything on that Texas rig setup and make it work from there. Whether I have to fish fast, slow, so be it. Whatever it is, that's what I'm going to throw. Again, the colors are primarily going to be for me red and white. Depending on the water clarity will depend the severity of the red and white, you know, so if it's more clear water, I'm going to throw more watermelon red. If it's dirtier water, I'm going to throw something like fire craw. If it's more on shad, you can kind of get away with just throwing silver and white, ghost shad, gizzard shad, bone shad, anything that's like white and silver, you can get away with throwing that in either clarity. It's pretty good at standing out and matching what a shad looks like in general. But that's really it. The rods I've got tied on right now, I've got a Texas rig with the setup I already talked about. I've got a 1/2 ounce bladed jig tied on. I've got a jerk bait tied on, which I'm actually going to switch to a frog for this next tournament. I've got a structure jig and a cotter in like a watermelon red with some like purple and red in there as well, tied on there. And then I got an inline spinnerbait that I already mentioned. I think I mentioned how it's my favorite type of spinnerbait. I definitely mentioned it, I think. But that's it. For a lot of people, this is the time they start getting back into fishing. Basically, anybody north of Florida is really going to start getting back into it now that it's all warmed up. For some reason, Florida people are like, oh, dude, the winter bite doesn't affect us that much. I'm like, I don't catch anything during winter. It sucks to fish during winter. So hopefully it's going to heat back up and I can get a lot more success on the water with you guys watching and joining me along the way. I got a tournament coming out next. Forgot the outro for it, so I'm just going to make one up. It's not going to look anything like the rest of the video most likely, but that's really it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it if you made it this far. If you enjoyed, go ahead, leave a thumbs up. It lets me know I'm doing something right. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about anything related to fishing, please drop it down below. And if you find yourself coming back more and more, or if this is something you want to stick around for and watch more of, hit the subscribe button. You don't have to turn the bells on. And at the end of the day, you don't have to do any of this. Now, lastly, if you do for some reason want to support me in any way, shape, or form, check in the bio down below or the description. I have a link that will give you guys a website that basically sells clothing and stuff like that. Basically, it's going to either put a few baits on the wall or it's going to put gas in the boat. That's all it's going to be. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it if you made it this far. And as always, keep chasing that next catch.